What we carry. We carry more than faces. We carry recipes, expressions, ways of laughing, the habit of always sitting in the same chair. Sometimes we carry someone else's kindness, sometimes their courage. And every now and then, without even realizing, we carry forward a small part of somebody else.
Our poem from the path, very pertinent to today's show, I think, to our guest, certainly. Let me make a sketchbook photo to start the day. Oh, Pups is up ahead there. Let me get a picture of him. This is going to be like a Where's Wally picture. Okay, here we go. 160 ISO, the sun beating down already. Gas mark hosepipe ban we have now. 1700 shutter speed, f3.2. There we go. A sketchbook photo to start the day. You know those little collections of flowers and photographs and handwritten notes that you sometimes pass by at the side of the road? I would imagine most of us glance at them for a second, then glance away quickly before driving on, knowing full well what most of them mean. A friend of, actually this was something that I remembered as I was researching the interview today. A friend of mine's mum, I remember, would always do the sign of the cross and then say, "Look away, kids, look away." Well, my guest today, photographer and writer Miranda Remington, was curious about them, so she stopped. And she stopped again. Then she just kept stopping. And what followed became, I think, a remarkable, and I'm not just going to say photo project, a remarkable human project, which was to take her into people's lives, which of course, yes, you would say could be the grief of what those flowers meant, but also stories about people who continue to love. And I think that's a really important part of the story today. I think we do thinking well on this show. Well, you do, definitely. And I think this is one of those episodes. Also today for the mailbag, Adam, Flack and Mark Mackay are deep in thought too, but they are about which famous photographer gets to make their portrait. Although Adam's very personal choice is going to need a time machine. Dan Langer has been upsetting with a small U the army, all in the name of humour, I might add. Gordon Oliver's digging a proper rabbit hole for you. It certainly kept me busy the other night. And our last letter of the show is celebrity-led. Celebrity-led? Well, that sounds like you've got Bryan Adams on the show at last, Neil. Well, you never know. Oh, plus a reminder of the assignment. That's all coming up on the show today as we walk these paths together.
My sincere thanks to those who help keep this show on the path each week, including our friends at arthelper.com. Have you ever wondered what it might be like to actually sell some of the amazing pictures you make? Making photographs, of course, is the enjoyable bit. We're all agreed on that, right? But then comes the part most of us put off. Writing the Instagram post, updating the website, sending the newsletter, finding the words to explain why a picture matters, and that's where Art Helper comes in. The clue is in the name. Upload your photograph and in moments it can write social posts, newsletters and website copy that actually sounds like you. No staring at a blinking cursor wondering where to begin, just a head start. It's becoming much more than a writing tool as well. Art Helper is a place where you can keep your portfolio together, and if you're thinking, well, yeah, I could sell some of this, create realistic wall mock-ups of your work, connect with other artists in a like-minded community, and build your creative life in one place. And if you're worried about AI using your pictures for training, don't be. Art Helper's Art Protection Guarantee means your images are never used to train AI models. And can you tell me which other platforms are promising you that kind of behaviour? You can try it for free, and if you use the code PHOTOWALK, you'll get 30 days off the pro version on them. Just head to arthelper.com, there's a link on the show page, and my thanks to Art Helper for supporting this podcast.
I've got the old summer cold. Break out the world's smallest violin, Neil. Oof. I don't know who gave it to me. Was it you? Was it you? Have you got the summer cold too? But it does leave you with a voice that might be good for voiceovers for the day. Some Shakespearean voiceovers. In the afternoon, that's what I shall schedule. If anybody needs a Shakespearean, slightly deep-voiced voiceover, I am your man. It's a bit of a niche genre, I'll grant you. Right, letters. Starting out by dipping into the mailbag. Couple of letters with, Adam Flack kicks us off. He's answering this month's biscuit tin question. If you could choose one photographer, past or present, notice I am underlining one here, to make your portrait, who would you choose? I think my answer would be Rose Frank, says Adam, who worked in and later ran the Tyree Photographic Studio in Nelson in New Zealand. She didn't photograph anyone necessarily of great national or international fame, but she was most likely the lady who took the glass plate images of a number of my ancestors in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and I'd like the chance to talk with her. I'd talk a little about the photo techniques and equipment she used, because why wouldn't I? But mostly, I'd like to know about the Glastonbury family, my ancestors, who she would have got to know during several studio sessions. Rose, bit of history now, was one of New Zealand's first professional female photographers. I will find a link and pop it on the show page. I suspect if I could sit with her and ask a few questions, she'd be able to tell me a lot about the family. Rose Frank's work has quite a profound impact on me. Made me think that in 100 years or more, would there be any photographs of me and my family? Or would the cloud have dissipated and lost it all? Now, there is a thought. A very good thought, Adam. Because on a day like today, look, it's cloud dissipation central. There is not a cloud in the sky. It's a blue sky day. And if that was all of our files in the air, metaphorically, I suppose, in the story, then, we've lost them all. There's nothing there. It's all blue skies shining at me. Nothing but no files. I can't see. This is a terrible rhyme. I'm doing my best. It's the head cold. It is. And then one from Mark Mackay in Australia land. Hi, Neil. I was listening to the podcast and you mentioned the portrait photographer question. Well, there are 3 well-known photographers to the stars, or perhaps who take photographs of famous people that spring to mind straight away. I'd like to take my portrait. I've Gregory Heisler's book on portrait photography, which I bought after hearing an interview where he was the guest. Have you been moonlighting on other people's podcasts? Some amazing portraits in that book. He could be a choice. I saw Rankin's photography contest on telly, which is now on YouTube, and I have one of his books. Again, a brilliant photographer. See, that's 2 now. He was on our podcast, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that in. Platon's work with a simple set also impresses me, or simple setup, also impresses me, although perhaps 1 or 2 of his subjects less so. But I know, but when you're a photographer or a journo, then that's half the fun, I think, half the challenge, meeting people you don't necessarily see eye to eye with. I would find that quite interesting, I think, mostly. Then I come down to well-known YouTubers I've consistently watched over the years since seeing my daughter's ability to learn from YouTube grow. Sean Tucker, Daniel Norton, Gavin Hoey from Adorama and Peter Coulson all do fantastic work, and I've learned a lot from them, so I'm grateful to them and would really like to have a portrait session with them. So where do I land? I am getting there. I've had the pleasure, if you can hear the shh in the background, by the way, that's the water coming out of one of the locks here. Is this lock? What number is this? I've begun to learn the lock numbers along the Kennet and Avon. So where do I land, he says? Well, I'm getting there. I've had the pleasure of speaking to Giles Penfound, your good friend. I've also heard him talk with you on various episodes of the podcast. So you are listening. He's moved to slower photography of late, and his previous stop and have a chat and a photo exercise makes him my choice as the person I'd favour to make my portrait. I think the process wouldn't be rushed and there'd be time for a chat. I'm sure he's got plenty of great stories he might share as well. Well, bring along a donut and he's all yours. Charles, if you're listening, says Mark, I live in Australia. Neil, you did mention he was heading down under. Thanks for the great podcast. Always looking forward to listening to the next show. Kind regards, Mark. Well, Mark, yes, Giles has been doing this huge drive across the country. And I'm going to get the cities wrong now. I think it was Perth to Sydney. I think. Anyway, it's been a mammoth drive, definitely. 8 to 10 days or something like that. First missive from him was, we ended up today at a place called Iron Knob. Half a mountain has been mined for iron ore. Incredible. I did message him back. I said, hi Giles, that at least explains the iron, and then left him with an ellipsis. As I walk along the path this morning, there's quite a few new styled barges, and since I've started learning more about barges and this ever-increasing desire, stroke wish, stroke pipe dream to one day own one, I've learned that there's I think a Chinese company in particular that are making barges that are a lot cheaper, but they have much thinner hulls. So there's definitely a sort of a two-barge community growing, or ownership, or whatever I'm trying to find as the Pinstriped Express goes past. There's definitely two camps on this one. Those that say, oh, you want the old ones, they don't make them like they used to, with dodgy engines and so on and so forth, or engines that badly need overhauls, and then the brand new ones that are fully fitted. They look great inside, but when you go below the waterline, anyway, I'm starting to run out of my knowledge base, so I'll move on. The best part of this show is the thrill of receiving those photographs you share from your own walks, or stories and pictures that have stayed in your mind. The places you've stumbled across, or the thoughts that arrived while you were simply walking. Whether you've got a camera over your shoulder or hands in your pockets, it doesn't matter. It's always great to hear from you. Send your mails about your walks and the photographs that you're taking to stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. Just ahead of our guest, Miranda Remington today, part 1. Here is one from Dan Langer. Greetings and salutations, Neil. Have we gone back into the Roman ages? It's been a minute since I last wrote. I can't tell you how many times I've composed this email while walking with Fergus, who I assume is a dog. When I heard you askint in the askint. Askint, is this a word I need to look up? When I heard you askint in the Extra Mile recently, what would or do you call your camera? I knew that I had to stop procrastinating. This all started when my wife, Barb, the famous Barb, bought me a new camera for Christmas. Shortly after, I gave my old camera to our youngest granddaughter. We took her to the local camera shop and kitted her out with a new bag and other essentials, left, right and centre, for a young teen to explore the world of photography. We took along her younger brother because they both expressed this interest in photography. And I wanted to kindle the interest. As it turns out, we ended up buying a point and shoot for the grandson as well. I tell you what, Dan, next time you're out camera shopping, can I come too? I'm surprised there's not a queue of people stretching out the door. Quick, everyone. This guy's buying cameras and kit. Just come in, he's buying it for everybody in here. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, Barb told me that our grandson had actually named his camera. He called it Cameron. And this got me thinking. My new camera is a Canon R10. Let me explain. Please do. A few years back, I was with a couple of running teammates in Ottawa. Now you're just showing off. For the Army Run. Now you're doubly showing off. Where we went to pick up our race kit, the Canadian Army had on display a number of pieces of hardware for the public to see and enjoy, and some personnel on site to answer any questions that we might have. One of my friends approached a young soldier and asked him about one particular piece of mobile artillery. He made the mistake of referring to it as a cannon. The soldier said, "No, the gun is a howitzer, not a cannon." Well, my friend spent the next 10 minutes asking a string of questions with the intent of getting the soldier to call the gun a cannon rather than a howitzer. Oh, my word. One of those types of people then, Dan. The consistent answer came back over and over. It's a howitzer, sir. It's a howitzer. We call it a howitzer. 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 Anyway, fast forward just a little bit, we took the grandkids out with their new-to-them cameras to a local arboretum. Or is it arboretum? Are we speaking two different languages again? In search of signs of spring, so you can tell I've had this letter a few months now. I told my grandson that following his lead, where he called his camera Cameron, I'd now named my camera. I then introduced him to, because it's a Canon, Howie. See, Dan, I like your style. That's not a cannon, sir, it's a howitzer. Oh, I assure you, it's a cannon. I'm not sure, by the way, I'd ever call it Howie for short to that young soldier that you met. You might find another piece of equipment, rather sharper. Anyway, thank you for your letter, Dan. Always good to hear from you. And I suppose, really, it is time for our first guest. Yes, Miranda Remington. Well, I've introduced, really, the story right at the start of the show and what Miranda's been making photographs of. Although I'd like to catch up a little bit more about her writing and other things that she does creatively. But here's part one of our conversation. I think a very human story today. Part one of our conversation. Miranda Remington.
Miranda, I feel like I'm going to need to revisit slightly the conversation that we had before, because I think we need to fill some spaces, join some dots, all that sort of stuff. When we talked before, we were talking about your career in advertising and graphic design, and then life, as it so often does, just came forth and intervened. You had a son; he was diagnosed with autism, and your creative ambitions, were they put on hold, or did you? Were they totally on hold?
They were completely put on hold. I had, like you said, I had an advertising agency for the years leading up to his birth. And then just, I was kind of blindsided by his diagnosis and some other personal things. And I just ended up having to really put everything on a hiatus, choosing between two different types of creativity. Of course, motherhood got the top billing, and basically spent 17 years away from any kind of creative life. And that's what brought us up to 2017 when he graduated. And, it was the year I turned 50. I'm about to turn 59. So a lot has transpired since that time. A lot of running around with my camera, collecting stories, and just kind of trying to make up for lost time, really.
How is he now? He's graduated, as you say.
Yes, he is grown. He is fairly self-sufficient. I'm very proud of, what he has managed to accomplish as an adult, and he's in a good place. Yeah. He's in a real good place.
I love this idea that because you really ignited that passion in your 50s, and I think there's a lot to be said for igniting a creative passion in your 50s, because you're more worldly wise. I think you do see differently. I know that sounds like a terrible cliche, but I do think you see differently. I think you certainly experience life differently, and so therefore that will inevitably come through in your creativity, won't it?
I 100% agree. I play this game with myself, and I say, well, what if I had picked up a camera when I was 21, 22, 23? Who would I be as an artist? And the truth is, everything that I have created in the last 9 years of my life is informed by my life. Yeah. There's just no denying it. As a photographer, especially if you go into any kind of creative, it's maybe more difficult to explore this on a commercial end, but as a creative photographer, an art photographer, even a documentary photographer, you really feel your own history when you're shooting other people.
Yeah.
When you're shooting landscape, even like everything, soup to nuts, good to bad, it all informs how you're seeing the world. And I honestly, I can't even imagine what I would be producing had I not had setbacks, hurdles, delays, all of it. I've learned to appreciate the frustration, we'll say, in the last couple of years.
How do you mean? What sort of frustrations?
Well, when we last talked, I had not even had any kind of professional, I had no books. There was nothing really for me to sit there and sell my wares. I was still a creative person on a trajectory. And it was kind of interesting because 3 months after we last spoke, I got an invitation for a solo exhibition. And it was the first time I ever printed my work, framed my work, displayed it, had it publicly consumed in any way, shape, or form. And I was kind of given like this Willy Wonka ticket opportunity here in California at the Borrego Art Institute. And I was approached and asked if I wanted a solo exhibition. And I just thought, my gosh, that's insane. Yeah. And the day before it was offered to me, I really was in kind of a slump and just kind of thinking, where am I going? What am I doing? I really kind of was having a pity party and feeling like I have failed at everything I've tried. What is going on here? And then at like 3:00 in the morning, I get up and I'm looking at my phone and I see this invitation and I just kind of fell to my knees. It felt kind of like an 11th hour save, let's just say. It just felt like such a divinely choreographed event. And 6 months later, I curated a 41 image exhibition. It was an allegory literally of my own life, my trials and tribulations. It was called Postcards from the Land of Yod. It was really an exploration of all of these, like all the awful things. And I just laid it out and I just kind of purged it and let it be this allegorical story. And it wasn't pictures of me. It wasn't pictures of my son. There was nothing personal about it. It was an entirely a symbolic and archetypal display of visual storytelling.
When people think of documentary photography, I would imagine they often think or imagine dramatic moments. Yet you can make a cactus or an abandoned old boot or an old light fitting feel worthy of attention. I think that makes you a collector of things, and certainly somebody with a heightened imagination.
I have always had a soft spot for the overlooked. I don't know how, when, or where. It might stem from a childhood with having a mother that loved to collect antiques, perhaps, but I've always had a real soft spot for, the thing that seems overlooked, that if you look at it from the right angle can be incredibly beautiful. Yeah. And that's, what I strive to capture in anything, is find the beauty in anything and everything. And I think that's probably pretty self-reflective of how I view my own self and my own life, is always trying to find the beauty in my life in general. So
you're now in the desert, Joshua Tree. What is it about that landscape that drew you there? Because you're actually right out in the middle of nowhere, yet you love that solitude.
Well, if I can go back a year, I was on the exact opposite coast. There was a part of me that I'm a lover of Stephen King, and the interloper in me kind of wanted to go follow in his footsteps. So I went to Maine in October of 2024, and I stayed for 6 months through the wintry, snowy, damp, and mildewy winter that Camden, Maine offered me. And Camden is a beautiful place. So when I refer to the mildewy, and it was really more my accommodations. And it was just something I needed to try, something I wanted to experience. Unfortunately, my health did not agree with that climate. So when my time was up, in Maine. I was leaving at the end of April, literally the last day of April, I left Maine. And I thought, I need to dry out. And I meant that really physically, my body needed a dry, hot climate. And yet, and emotionally, I kind of needed something too. There was something really missing. All those years of running around and photographing really was a kind of a Forrest Gump kind of experience. My sister said I was kind of like Forrest Gump running around the country and just trying to process my feelings. And she said to me, it's kind of like you're in the middle of the desert in, Monument Valley when he's all long bearded and everything. And it was like, well, I'm tired. I think I'll go home now. And that really kind of felt like where I was at. I was like, I'm kind of done running around the country. I kind of want to see where I want to settle down. And I've always loved the desert. And to answer your question, I decided that I was going to kind of go into a hermetic mode. And that's really what this place has offered me. I'm in the high desert. It's 3,400 feet. I'm at the base of Goat Mountain in the middle of Johnson Valley. And this is about 11 miles north of Joshua Tree National Park proper. So I'm actually in a town called Landers, and it has a lot of mystique. It has a lot of mystery. It has a lot of unsolved mystery. I'm juxtaposed between the San Bernardino Mountains and to the west of me, and to the east of me is 29 Palms Marine Corps Base. So I've got this weird woven tapestry of the wilds of nature butting up against this type of humanity and human experience that is so counterintuitive to each other. And yet I'm sitting right at the crossroads of these two worlds. And then Joshua Tree with its, Joshua Tree itself, it's famous for its hippies and its musicians and its iconoclasts and the creatives coming out here to be in the desert. There's so many famous artists and musicians and writers that have come out here to just kind of decompress and get away from it all. And I thought, I'm not a famous artist by any means, but I like the idea of decompressing. So I got myself a hacienda. It's on 5 acres of desert land. It's dotted with Joshua trees, and I sit perched up high enough that I can see an incredible sunrise and an incredible sunset all at the same time. And the desert air has some of the most beautiful color. When you get to altitudes like this and the dust gets in the air, the particles just change the atmosphere, and it's pretty magical.
It feels like a good moment to open the journal this week. Landers, California, where the desert has spent decades collecting stories that nobody's ever managed to really pin down, and I think that's what Miranda's getting at. Just outside the town sits Giant Rock, one of the world's largest freestanding boulders, but for many it isn't simply a rock. It's a place where people claim to see lights in the night sky that move in ways aircraft can't. Others believed it sat on a powerful energy vortex, capable of healing or somehow changing anybody who visits. In the 50s and 60s, thousands travelled into the desert for annual spacecraft conventions, convinced that this lonely corner of California is one of the likeliest places on Earth to make contact with visitors from somewhere else. The stories didn't stop there. George Van Tassel, an aircraft engineer who lived beside Giant Rock, insisted he'd received telepathic instructions from extraterrestrials to build the Integratron, a remarkable all-wooden structure without a single nail. He claimed it could recharge the body's cells, slow aging, and perhaps even bend time itself. Where do I sign up? Nobody's ever demonstrated that it could do any of that stuff, but the building's still there, and people continue to travel from all over the world, drawn by the possibility that there may be something science hasn't explained to us properly yet. I'd like to move to this project that we're going to talk about this time, which is the memorials. Now, we have memorials in the UK, the same sort of thing. You know, when you drive along a road and you see one of these memorials and think, oh, there's a bit of a oh, ouch. I'm not quite sure that I want to look at that, and just keep my eyes on the road and move on. And that's terribly sad for the person who's passed and now has a memorial to them. But so what was it that attracted you to things at the side of the road that otherwise most people drive straight on by?
Well, you know, driving around North America for the last 9 years, I would see them. You know, I think I photographed my first one back in 2001 in Nevada. It was actually a shoe tree. It was this massive tree, and people would fling their shoes up in it. And this tree it was probably 100 feet tall, and it had thousands of shoes on it.
Right.
And it kind of captured my attention. And so over the years, as I'm on the road, I would see these memorials, and some of them I would stop for and photograph. So like the ghost bikes, which I don't know if you have them there in the UK, but here they're like people who were cyclists. And what they do is they paint the bike white. Right. And then they mount it somewhere. And there's one in downtown Austin. I've seen them in Appalachia. There's one here in Joshua Tree. There's probably a couple of them.
What is a ghost bike
the ghost bike it's a special kind of memorial that represents the person who was riding it when they were killed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So a cyclist. So it's a, you know, it's a, you know, a 10 speed or whatever, or a mountain bike or whatever. And the people that put this particular memorial up, they spray paint the bike entirely white. And one of the first ones I ever photographed was in Appalachia about 4 or 5 years ago. And it was mounted to the side of a tree. It was incredible. And I found it so haunting. And then I was in Austin for a while, and I saw one in downtown Austin in a very high traffic part of Austin. And I thought, this is just really incredible. So they've always kind of fascinated me. And I'm somebody who really is not afraid of taboo subjects. I'm the girl that loves watching documentaries on mystery, supernatural, unsolved mysteries, unsolved murders, you name it. I'm so fascinated with kind of the darker side of life because I love a good mystery. Driving by them, like you say, you have this reaction, but also then there is the reality that we pass by them every day and we get kind of numbed out to it, right? And I started to think of them as like these seedlings. I drive on a section of Highway 247 in California, which connects Barstow to Joshua Tree. It's one of the main ways that people that are touring here to the national park get here. Right. And locally, there's a section that's the entire route is 75 miles, but the section that is Old Woman Springs Road, which is the road I decided to focus on because, first of all, the name is very captivating. And it's 45 miles long from Yucca Valley, which is the town just to the west of Joshua Tree, the town itself. And it goes north and curves slightly to the northwest to a little intersection that's called Lucerne Valley. And from Lucerne Valley, you can go, you know, to Barstow, you can go to Apple Valley, or you can go up to Big Bear, which is the mountains. And it's a crossroads. And so there is only one light on this 45-mile stretch of road. And I have to travel this road pretty regularly just to get groceries. I'm 11 miles from the nearest real grocery store. So that's a hike. And so I would be on this road on a regular basis. And I happened to start really getting affected by the fact that there were so many of these roadside memorials. One night I was on my way to the grocery store late at night, like 6:30. And so in October here at 6:30, the sun's down past the mountains. So I'm driving towards town, and one of the memorials that I passed pretty regularly is 3 crosses. And because you pass this every day, you just assume it's 3 crosses for 3 different people. And that's what I did. And this particular night, I thought, you know, I'm just going to, I had just, it was so fleeting. It wasn't even a commitment. It was just a fleeting idea. But I'm like, I'm going to go photograph those. I pulled up opposite them, and the lights, the little lights that illuminated them from beneath were on. So it was just dark enough. And so to compensate for my lack of technical skills, I rolled down my window and I braced my elbows in the window, and I held my breath, and I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to take a few photographs with the lights. And I did, and they were fine. They looked like they could be clear. And then all of a sudden, an emergency vehicle, I hear the sirens, and the hair on my neck stands up. And I still have the camera braced in my hands in the frame of the door, looking across the street and having everything in frame. And I look just to my right, and I see the fire rescue engine coming by, and it's an emergency vehicle, so it's not a full ladder engine. It's the mid-size, right? Lights are blaring, it's screaming, sirens, everything. And I don't have my camera ever set on like fast shutter repeat. It's single frame. That's how I shoot. I'm like, okay, brace for it. If you get lucky, Miranda, you're gonna get this really great streak of light through the frame. We'll see if that does anything. I shot 3 frames, and only 2 of them had lights in the frame, and the one that turned out, I could just see in my viewer. I'm like, okay, the lights are there, and I couldn't see very clearly like what was going on. And I just closed my camera off, went to the store, and came back home, unloaded them, and I look at this picture on, I'm sorry, I might get a little emotional. I pulled this image, and I saw the streaks were just meeting the very first cross. And I can't describe how overwhelmed I got. The just like every nerve in my body just tingled. I felt like this voice telling me, do the photo essay. Photograph the memorials. It's not about the memorials. You need to talk to the families, photograph the families. They are the story. They have something to say. We have something to say.
And my thanks to Miranda Remington, who returns soon for part 2 of our conversation. If you'd like to leave comments about the episodes that you hear, it's always great to receive an email from you to stories@photowalk.show, stories@photowalk.show, or you can leave some messages on the show pages that come with every single episode. And while I'm about it, make sure you do go and look at the show pages, because there's a plethora, however you pronounce it. You say plethora, I say yes. There's a plethora of links and films, especially today, on the show page, so you can take a proper dive down the rabbit hole of photography. On this week's Extra Mile, I'd like to mention it. I thought I'd try something following last week's show, where I took a reasonably deeper dive, I would say, as the YouTubers would say, into the history behind the Notting Hill Carnival that we were featuring on last week's edition. Now, I had a very nice Father's Day prezi bought for me by my youngest, which led to a day out together last Saturday, which I am going to feature on today's Extra Mile. We went on a little grand adventure, or a grand adventure. It was a decent distance away, which got my creative mind thinking. Well, both myself and Thomas, we both have a creative leaning. He definitely with his photography and stuff that he does. And I thought, how could I remember our lovely day as something more akin to the way that I now journal? So what I gathered in the end was a collection of thoughts, some stories about where we went, some history, a couple of interviews with people that we both met, and even a little poetry I went off to find to go with our adventure. Plus there'll be pictures on the Patreon page that I made during the day. And I was thinking, or we were thinking, maybe it might give you some ideas for similar things that you might be doing in the future with your loved ones. Little trips out time spent with family if you go on these lovely adventures, these grand adventures. So that's what this week's Extra Mile is. It's, I think, something that I'm going to, stooping underneath that branch, I'm going to definitely use more as a technique for gathering the memories from a forthcoming holiday. This I want to hear, Neil. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Where can I hear it? Well, easy. Go to the website, photowalk.show. You'll see the Extra Mile link. And the best thing is, as soon as you are a member, you get access to hundreds of additional shows and our monthly live Zoom meetup. And you can listen to all those shows, new and archive, on whatever app you use to listen to your podcast regularly. It's magic, it's magic. Also, while you're there, check into the store because there is our first zine. It's available. We have a few printed copies left. They're running out fast. And as they say on the adverts, when they're gone, they are gone. There is a digital download version, but the printed one we did as a limited run. And we have the new T-shirts out. Oh, yes, we do. There are lots of T-shirts to come. I don't expect that we're going to become overnight T-shirt success merchants. But it's been fun. It's been fun designing some. There will be some that are, I'd say, sort of more text-led, and there'll be some picture ones too. Anyway, it's all on the website, photowalk.show, alongside the adventures that we're also taking this year, Mongolia to come, fully booked now, and Venice in the winter, which I'm very, very much looking forward to.
Well now, I would hazard a bet that most of us have photographs sitting on hard drives that mean something to us, something special. Photographs we've travelled to faraway places for, or moments of quiet, like the photographs we make in nature, or the very loud and noisy ones. We have these amazing photographs, but we've never really done anything with them since, well, who knows. But they just sit there on the hard drive, looking at you. And that's one of the reasons I like Silver Grain Press. They specialise in helping photographers turn our digital files into something tangible. Beautifully made photo books, exhibition quality prints on Hahnemuller paper, using pigment inks and solid hardwood frames that give your photographs a permanent place beyond a screen. If there are pictures you've been meaning to print, perhaps this can be the nudge. Visit silvergrainpress.com. That's all one word, silvergrainpress.com/photowalk, where you will receive 15% off your first order. That's silvergrainpress.com/photowalk.
Barney is doing very well this morning. You haven't heard Sabak a lot. And that's because I forgot to bring the famous tin of treats. And I found out almost immediately as I went to look for I dipped into my camera bag for the X100V. Normally right underneath that, there is the little tin of treats, which he calls out for, as you know, during the show. Nothing, it wasn't there. I thought, oh no, this is going to be awkward. But he seemed to understand. I said, listen, there's nothing there, darling. I showed him the bag. And, you're right, pups? So he's just looked behind. Yeah, we're talking about you. I said, there's nothing here. It's going to be a quiet show today. Me with my cold, you just jangling along the path with your collar, and the odd occasional, here comes one now, Pinstriped Express, taking all the pinstripers into Paddington at 70 whatever pounds a day. Not that I'm moaning. I dropped a note casually to our photographic friend David Duchemin during the week to see how he is, as you do, and he casually dropped back a message, as you do, saying, "Hi, I'm sitting in a beanbag chair in Zambia." So I penned him back a very quick thought to let him know that while he's watching the mighty Victoria Falls, I was about to head out to Wicks to go and get a sync unblocker. Such is the difference between our two lives. But I thought I'd mention him because he's obviously been playing on Gordon Oliver's mind as well. Here is another letter from Gordon about it's about the biscuit tin of questions question, as it were. I think that'll make sense as we go along. Hi, Neil. A word of warning. Oh, no. Well, I don't like how this is starting already. A word of warning. You might want to immediately get out the sofa of flattery to hide behind, because I would like to start by saying a big thank you for what you do. Quick, draw that sofa even closer. The podcast has been an endless source of inspiration for me. You've introduced me to so many wonderful image makers, artists, philosophers, and educators working in and around the wonderful world of photography. Gordon, consider me the Cupid of curious ears, introducing them to people that might not otherwise meet, like a dating service for luggols, without ruining your marriage. Anyway, Gordon says, to give you just one example, I recently picked up a copy of The Heart of the Photograph by David Duchemin. Yes, you did. After listening to the various interviews that you've conducted with him. And we have another one to come soon. Pups, move away. No, that's a pigeon that's met its end. No, not breakfast. Yes, we have another one to come in the next month and a bit, actually, which I'm looking forward to. Again, I'm going to, because David's such a great interviewee, we've talked about his life, his photography, of course, the accident that he had that led to a very different story for him. But he's great to talk with. And so I have another one coming up, which is about moments, something that I've been introducing of late to a few guests. A moment of joy, a moment of calm, a moment of disappointment, a moment of, you get the idea. Since photography is based around moments, that's what that feature is. And David's coming onto the show to talk about that. It's a fantastic book, says Gordon, and is really starting to work the old grey matter on the subject of image making and art and intention and many other things. I feel that the questions he's posing in this book will really help me with developing my own approach to image making. If you haven't read it, I thoroughly recommend it. Thank you. I will be... Have I? This is terrible. I think I've got the book. It's one of the ones that's not yet read. Incidentally, David has a stonking biscuit tin question, which I thought I would pass on. If you could only look at the work of 10 other photographers for the next couple of years, who would they be? And what is it about their work that so resonates with you? It's a fascinating question and one that I've been ruminating on. For what it's worth, here is how my list currently stands. 6 legends of photography that everyone will be familiar with. Will they? While the remaining 4 are more contemporary and probably less well known. We'll start with Elliot Erwitt for his humour, observation, and ability to see relationships. See, I did say there's going to be a lot of links on the show page this week for you to follow. Gianni Berengo Gardin for his clever compositions, framing, use of layers, and I do hope I've got the name right, not gone over the top with a ridiculous European pronunciation that I didn't quite need. Ernst Haas for his effective use of colour, abstract compositions, and his use of motion blur. Sol Leiter for his pops of colour and clever composition. Vivian Meyer for her keen sense of observation, character and wit. Arnold Newman for his ability to capture the essence of the individual in his portraits, and boy does he, you're right about that. And Ewan Bell for his sensitive travel portraits and use of soft lighting and colours. Merlin Daleman, you see now, yes, we're heading into names I'm not familiar with, for his gritty documentary work and ability to capture the essence of the place. Norman McCloskey for his passion for place and ability to present a cohesive body of work. And Yasuhiro Ogawa for his beautiful, haunting, semi-abstract imagery. Whew, yes, there's a few to search out there. Any list of this nature is bound to be contentious. How can I leave out Ansel Adams, Richard Avedon, Henri Cartier-Bresson, Fred Herzog, Annie Leibovitz, Lee Miller, Steve McCurry, Martin Parr, Sebastian Salgado, etc., etc. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's very personal and requires tough decisions. Try it, Neil. You might be surprised at some of the names that appear on your final list. I'll have to sit down with a coffee. A good hour just to sit there and ruminate. But it would be quite rude of me to put forward a new biscuit tin question without answering your current one. Namely, which photographer, past or present, would you choose to make your portrait? Well, for me, I think it would be Mark Christensen, as I love his homage to the Dutch masters with painterly compositions that somehow manage to sneak in modern elements like a tea towel or a plastic bag instead of a hat that you only notice on closer inspection. Come on, pups. Oh, goodness, look, he's doing his best. If I haven't got treats, I'll bring you a stick. And he's got a branch, or a small branch that's still attached to the tree. Come on, you're never going to get that. Anyway, says Gordon, that's it. Keep up the good work. Hopefully I might bump into you on the K&A towpath at some point. Well, I'm looking this morning, Gordon. I've been here for well over an hour and a half now. Haven't seen you anywhere. Where are you? Gordon, the local other listener. So, yes, you know this towpath, so I'll do a deal with you, Gordon. You can come and tell me more about those on the list, and I will bring coffee. No sugary snacks at the moment. I'm trying to get bikini fit for Mongolia. Welcome to the photo walk of a Friday. Me with your letters, you with stories of the walks you're taking, and also our wonderful guests. And Miranda is back shortly. Talking about being back, the assignments are back. These are now quarterly assignments. The feedback was that it's very hard to keep up with them month on month, and as you can tell, it's hard for me sometimes to get the pages there month on month, or even in the quarterly way, but they are there now. In Leica terms, because they're quarterly, I called the last one Q. We started in Q2, and this is the final Leica joke I can make this year, because there is no Q4, is there? So this will be Q3, Leica fans. It's the assignment set by the legendary Platon.
The photo walk assignment.
Truth.
Truth. That's perfect for you.
Yeah.
Say something about truth.
Well, you know it when you see it. You feel it in your bones. And these days, we really don't know what's real and what isn't real. Everyone's talking about AI replacing everything, and it probably will replace so much. But what it's also going to do is remind us how valuable something authentic and human really is. So more than ever, the next few years of our lives, I think, are going to be about our value of truth and human authenticity.
So good luck with that. Entries will go onto the assignments page on the website at photowalk.show. Look for the latest one set by Platon, which is where you'll find the email address to send yours to as well, with all the entry rules. And the winner will have one of our new T-shirts. There might be various ones from which you can choose, actually, next time around. Thank you for your feedback over the last couple of weeks to the shows that you've been listening to. Last week's show about London's greatest street story, you try saying that quickly 3 times, tongue twister, which was about the upcoming Notting Hill Carnival, attracted a few nice comments. Thank you for those. It featured Wayne Critchlow and some unexpected guests who drew, I think, some, decent responses, such as Paul Holdorf. I enjoyed the story and loved the music on that show. I found the conversations related to race and philosophy to be especially compelling, Neil. I respect the way you let your guests do the talking and share their knowledge and experience. I'm a fairly privileged white guy, he says, from the US. It's important that these stories are told from the viewpoint of those who experienced it. I agree. Paul, thank you. It was a privilege to make episode 540, as it is all episodes, of course. What have you got, Pups? You got a stick? I'm not very good this morning. I have not remembered the breakfast treats. Go on, chase that. Come on, here we go. You've got it. Trying to keep him happy, Paul. Here's a moment from last week's show. If you haven't heard it yet, it's definitely, I think it's one of our finest. I know you're not supposed to say that, but all the same. And this gives me an opportunity to play with some more of that carnival-inspired music that you referred to as well. Whilst you might have once been afraid to be brave and in people's faces and in the scene, you're not
anymore. Now you're part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've already said that by the fact you climb aboard the floats.
Yep.
You're up ladders. You're in front of people.
I'm in front of people.
Sometimes, perhaps, funnily enough, that's the best way to be discreet, is by being part of it.
Absolutely. I suppose it's a confidence thing as well, isn't it? Because, you know, a lot of photographers kind of shy away from taking photographs of human beings because of that kind of insecurity about what's going to happen. Are they going to punch me in the face? You know, but some people have got this fear, right, about photographing humans, and you think it's weird because we are human, so why should you be, right? So I just embraced it, and the human condition, the human spirit was something that intrigued me, and I think all my images that I create, I try to capture those emotions and that spirit.
Just how the thing it goes. Yes, we do give thanks when we go out dance. You know we outside free and living up. You know we live it up. Oh yes, we do give thanks when we go out dance. Yeah, we outside free and living up. You know we live it up.
I so enjoyed making that show. It's last week's program, very formal, Neil, when I went to London, spoke with Wayne Critchlow about his book. Well, it's a co-authored book about the Notting Hill Carnival called Carnival of Resistance. I shall leave a link to that as well. Right, second and concluding part now to my conversation today with Miranda Remington.
Before meeting the families, because the families become an important part of this project, don't they? And I didn't want to call it a photo project. I wanted to call it a human project, because that's very much what this is. Before you met the families, were you worried about that prospect? Because they might have thought it's a bit strange. You're perhaps not invading. The invasive word is not the right word, and that's the only one I can place at the moment. But it feels like you're a visitor. You're a visitor to their grief, and maybe they didn't feel it was appropriate. Or am I entirely wrong there? And they felt like their loved one had been seen again.
I took 48 hours to think about how I was going to approach this, because I thought, I'm at a crossroads. I can either bail on this entirely, or I can take a leap of faith and say, okay, Miranda, take everything that you know about being a human being, about being a sensitive person. Take everything you know about learning how to communicate from the heart, sensitively, and listening, because you've got a child on the spectrum. You've spent 26 years of your life learning how to communicate with someone who has communication deficits. You've become very sensitive. Use that skill. Use your intuition. Just be sensitive, but don't be afraid. And that's a hard crossroads to, alchemize. So what I did, Neil, was I went to the local Facebook groups and I composed a note, and I just said, I'm Miranda Remington. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking to do. I am inviting you to contact me. I put the power in the hands of the families. And I told everyone, I said, I am not going to chase people down. I am not knocking on doors. This is purely voluntary, because the last thing I intended to do was to force someone's confidence, to force someone to open up in a way that was going to be painful. And it really reminded me of like when I was a baby journalism student. I can remember part of the reason I didn't go into print media or broadcasting, because I could not imagine, even at the age of 18, 19, 20, like the last thing I ever want to do is put a microphone in front of somebody on the worst day of their life. So here I am, 35 whatever years later, and I'm not asking someone on the worst day of their life. I'm asking them to recall and relive the worst day of their life. So I was very intentional with how I presented the project to the public. A couple people were skeptical, but it was very quickly, it really didn't stick. I want to come back to the memorial that I shot. I would go back and find out that that memorial was not for 3 people. It was actually one person. It was one man who was killed on his motorcycle. There just happened to be 3 different memorial crosses. He was so beloved.
Was that Anthony Parra?
No, this one was actually Kevin Arona.
Oh, that was Kevin. Sorry. Yes.
So Kevin Arona was riding up to Big Bear with his dear friend Kai, and they were broad daylight, and they're on their Harleys, and oncoming truck turned in front of Kevin, and it's just devastating. And motorcycles, as we all know, are always vulnerable, and this was a classic example of that on this road. So I put this posting on 3 different Facebook groups on Dia de los Muertos. So I chose it very sensitively as well, because Dia de los Muertos in Southern California, with the Latin atmosphere and culture here, it's a big deal. And I thought this is going to be appropriate, because I wanted people to understand that I was not coming at this like an interloper, some kind of adrenaline, creepy junkie about things. I wanted them to know that I wasn't interested in rehashing the horrors of what happened to your loved one. You are the story. You are the one that I want to talk to. You're the one who erected this monument to their memory. And I wanted to know, what was that about? How is this helping you? Is it helping you?
Well, it wasn't just interviews, was it? Because you found yourself being invited into the family, going to Christmas visits. And I think with Kevin, now that I know it's Kevin, you went on the annual motorcycle ride. You joined them.
Yeah, I did. And I want to just say, one of the very first, it was enough that this image that I took of Kevin's memorial was so profound. But 4 days after that, I end up, posting this invitation to the community. And 4 days after that, I'm contacted by Stephen Arona, Kevin's father, and Kevin's father happened to be the very first person who reached out to me. And I just thought, this is not a coincidence. There was something very profoundly spiritual happening here. And I don't want to go into too great a detail with regard to my meeting Mr. Arona, but I will say this. And you can see a picture of him on my website. He was the first person I met. And when I approached him, I said, I was very candid. I said, Mr. Arona, I've never done this before. This is not a project I ever thought I would be doing, but your son wanted it done. And it was really hard to say out loud, because you don't know how people are going to perceive the supernatural, the spiritual, the psychic, and the intuitive realm. But this is what I tapped into.
Has that experience and what you're tapping into, has that flowed through the entire project? I know there's 40 memorials along that stretch of road you were talking about. So there's plenty of memorials to photograph and plenty of people that you're yet to speak to and have spoken with. Yeah,
40 memorials. I would say 35 of them specifically relate to individuals.
Yeah.
When I got done interviewing Mr. Arona, who was an incredibly brave and kind and warm and generous man, and the grief that was present in that, broad daylight, I think I was with him all of 1 minute, and we were, the emotion became very overwhelming very, very quickly. And I just learned very quickly that you're going to be going to a memorial service every time you meet these families. One of the events that really struck a chord with me, and it really told me, this is not like anything you're ever going to do ever again. This is a legacy project. This is a life-defining photo essay. And everything that you've done up until now is just homework. for this moment. So the week after I had interviewed Mr. Arona, that weekend, I had the sisters of Anthony Para. They reached out to me and I interviewed them. And so I had Mr. Arona on Saturday and Anthony Para's sisters on Sunday. So I had back-to-back funerals, we will say. It was such a wonderful, and I don't even know if that's the right word, but it was so profound and meaningful. I took a couple of days and I thought, okay, I need to go do a survey of the road. And I started from my home. I live about 11 miles into the north-south trajectory, we'll say. So the beginning of this road is very undulating. You rise up from Yucca Valley through this rocky boulder outcrop. It's really beautiful. And you land up on the mesa, which is where I live. And then the mesa kind of levels out. And then you get to the crest of it at about the 14 or 15 mile mark, and it opens up, it becomes Johnson Valley, and you can see for like 35 miles. And it's this open, vast bowl of nothing.
It's that very typical photograph that we imagine those roads to be.
Absolutely. It's everything you imagine. And that's where the off-roaders go. It's very open. There's not a lot of housing out there. But, all the dirt bike, there's a really famous, off-road thing called the Hammer that goes on out here. And it's kind of like the Coachella for off-roaders. So Anthony Para's marker is at the top of that bowl. It was kind of like, well, I got that far because, I was inching my way up north, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go toward Lucerne Valley. And it was late in the afternoon and the sun was starting to set. And we were having this unusual rainy weather in November. It's normally not that rainy here. And there were these incredible clouds over the San Bernardino Mountains. And like I said earlier, the San Bernardino Mountains are to the left of me. And it's where the Pacific Crest Trail goes through, and, the San Andreas Fault parallels it. And so the sun will set over the mountains and you get all the weather from the mountains. And so this particular evening, it's about 4:30, the sun is starting to set. It's not behind the mountains yet, but there are these big moody clouds forming over the mountains because it's creating some weather. And I'm not a sunset person, I'm not somebody who stops to photograph sunsets. So I see the sunset and the rays are coming down, and they're just like, I tell people it reminds me of like those Jesus paintings of the 70s where, it would be like the rays coming down out of the clouds and it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
and it just had that.
Called God rays.
God rays, yeah. That's a good, even better term. So they're coming out of the clouds and they're shooting in front of the mountains. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need some auxiliary photography for this photo essay. I'm not going to just photograph the memorials. I need filler, atmosphere, because I don't know what I'm doing with this project. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm just shooting and seeing where this goes. So I see this state park sign that says Camp Rock Road, and it's, indicating a campground, and it's a typical California state park sign. It's very big and wooden. I thought, I'll photograph that with the rays coming down on the sign. It'll be, it's a little tropey, but I can live with myself. So I pull over to the left on the side road of Camp Rock Road, and to the northwest is the sun, and it's coming down and the rays are coming down. I'm like, oh, that's really pretty. And I get my 7 or 8 shots, and I turn around, and across from my car on the ground are these 2 markers for these 2 16-year-old girls who were killed at that exact spot. And I didn't know they were there. I had never seen them before. And I just thought, oh God, that's so wild. I would have never seen them from the road had I not pulled over. So I went over to the memorial, and when the rain comes through, the sand very often covers all of the roads, and they bring basically snow plows and they plow this, the sand off of the road. And so there's this big berm, and I'm standing on top of this berm on the corner, and I'm shooting down, at these little placards, and there's little painted stones. And so I'm standing on the berm, and all of a sudden I look at my right, and there's a car that pulls off parallel to me, and it's a woman, and she's got her car window down. And, like we were talking earlier, like, how do you know, like, people are going to receive this, and not feel like you're being intrusive? So I'm kind of on my back heel, and I'm trying to be, take a deep breath. And because seeing somebody photographing memorials on the side of the road has got to look odd. Out here, it looks odd. So I will tell you, I have a little bit of hearing loss, and it's not anything tragic, but it's just enough for me to not process what people are saying all the time. And this woman asks me if I'm okay, and I said, yeah, I'm just photographing. And what I thought I heard her say was, that's somebody's daughter. And feeling guilty, just a little nervous, I said, yeah, I know. I know. She goes, no, that's my daughter. I lost my breath. This happened in a span of less than 10 minutes, that I pull over to take this photograph. I see this memorial, and one of those two markers was this woman's daughter. She was 16, and she died on her 16th birthday. She and her grandmother and her best friend were riding in a car, and they got hit by a drunk driver. And it devastated the community. And here was this young lady's mother. And the first thing I said to her is, can I give you a hug? Because your humanity is the very first thing that you have in all of this. The photographs are secondary. And I just sat there and I had a conversation with her, and I asked her, I said, would you mind being interviewed? And I told her about the project, and she was very receptive. She was very kind and very warm. She was my first mother. I had a father, I had sisters, and now I had a mother. And talking with her, I just said, can I just take a quick picture of you? And she said, sure. So I took a picture of her with the San Bernardino Mountains and the sun behind her. And it wasn't until I got home that I realized that the rays had shifted from shining down to shining up to the heavens. But while I was standing on the side of the road talking to her, I told her, I said, your daughter pulled me over. And again, I'm not filtering myself, because because that's what I felt. I'm like, your daughter pulled me over. I said, I don't photograph sunsets, but I felt compelled to photograph this sunset. And she said, that was my daughter's favorite thing to photograph.
What's happening with the project now? I know there's been press interest, a lot of press interest actually, which is fantastic. Exhibition, book?
My first order of business is to honor the families. And because there's 40 memorials, there's no way I'm going to collect 40 stories. It's just not going to happen. And so I decided that what was most important was to create a hologram, because I had people approach me whose family members died 2 miles past the terminus of Old Woman Springs Road. And they're like, oh, I have, and I would have loved to have included them. And I just said, it's not going to be part of this project, but we'll see what happens down the road. I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to say, for this particular project, not right now. But please know that I do care about your loved one's memorial and your story, and I will be in touch with you at some point. What I am planning first is a private viewing with the families at the end of August. I want to give them a review. I have met with, when I say, 7 or 8 families, that's not 7 or 8 people. One memorial alone had 22 releases signed. And that was joyous. There was sadness, but there was joyous. To see the response of some of the families make an event out of it, to meet with me and tell me about their loved one, was incredible. I had debated whether I wanted to open it up to the public, but what I thought was more meaningful is that for the families, there is a interwoven element going on. They're not all isolated. In fact, it's kind of incredible that of the 7 major memorials that I interviewed families over, there's cross-pollination of families that know each other. And I didn't anticipate that. When I started this, I thought, well, it's going to be a bunch of tourists. That's what I really thought, because it's a dangerous road. People go from, through Johnson Valley like a bat out of hell. And not all of the memorials here, I have to say, not all the memorials here are here because of tragedy of a car accident. One of the most famous, locally famous monuments is actually a painted rock up at the top of the bowl of Johnson Valley. And it's dedicated to a man by the name of Jim Nestor. And it says, "Remember Jim Nestor." And the first time I saw it was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago when I came through here. I'm like, who's Jim Nestor? And I started doing, some investigation on who he was. And he was a man who disappeared while he was trying to investigate a little girl who disappeared in Joshua Tree National Park in the 80s. And the painted rock has been maintained and painted for about 40 years now, over 40 years. And it's been a mystery who painted it. And I found out who painted it. And how I found out, no one will ever believe. It dropped in my lap. No one around here knew who painted it for 40 years. It's a story unto itself that's just so incredible that a person who knows a person who knows a person who I knew for all of 2 hours says, "Oh, I know who painted that." And they had just learned themselves less than a month prior. So it sat for 40 years minus 1 month. And then it gets relayed to me. And that's a story I don't even want to tell because it's so incredible.
No, you shouldn't. That should be the one in the book. That should definitely be. Yeah,
it's the end cap of the book. Put it that way.
Definitely. It's a fascinating project. It truly is. And I wish you the best of luck with it as you continue. Last time we talked, I did not ask you a particular question that I always end interviews with these days. That shows you how long ago it was since we last talked. And it's simply, what is your why?
Why is a great question. I guess it's kind of a form of breathing. It's a way for me to feel emotions that I don't know that I have. It's a conduit to exercising stuff that I don't even know is in there. Especially this particular project. This one is so profoundly about grief and healing and how you move that rock up the hill and keep going. How do you find the joy? How do you find a guilt-free laugh again? And I love this planet. I approach it like I'm never going to be here again, and I want to see and taste and feel and touch everything. And I can't access everything, so my photographs can grab so much that I can't physically touch, and I can bring it closer. And the why for me is to bring the world closer to me. So, to bring it into my heart, to bring it into my spirit so that I can experience it. I'm such a visual person. And I think if there was a sense that if I lost, it would devastate me, it would be my sight. So for me, the why is really, it just has its own nourishment.
And my sincere thanks to Miranda Remington for being my guest on the show this week. You will see pictures that Miranda's talked about, or the subject, of course, that we've talked about on the show page today. So make sure you go visit the show page. As I said earlier, there's quite a few things to keep your mind employed for a while. It's a real rabbit hole experience, the show page this week. So go to photowalk.show. The famous, not so famous last letter of the show in a moment. But firstly, thank you to the people who keep this whole thing on the path, really. Neil Ford wrestles with the tech stuff, those gremlins that sometimes refuse to work, and actually, our brand new studio. We have a brand new studio. More to come on that, actually, within the next zine being produced, as I do a behind the scenes on how the show is actually made. Andrea Gilpin keeps Instagram fed. Kelly Mitchell tends to Facebook. And Kelvin Brown steers the Flickr group, while Michael Brennan is curating the show's Spotify playlist each week. So if you're trying to remember a piece of music you heard, you thought, oh, quite like that, chances are it's there already. Links on the show page, as ever. Talking of which, in terms of music that is, the play-out song today is called Bluebirds. Beautiful song by Sunway Street. That tune just to lead us a little bit further up the path today. Right, are we ready for this?
It's the last letter of the show. The last letter of the show.
It is from Mark Christensen, the portrait photographer and music events photographer, wearing many hats actually. To what do we owe this pleasure, Mark? Good morning, Neil. My life has been a bit sporadic of late. That's a way of describing life, isn't it? How's your life at the moment? Good, is it? Sporadic, actually. Oh, really? I think there's a cream for that. I haven't been able to listen to as many episodes as I'd like, or write you my random emails for that matter. See, I knew it was you. There's been a missing number, and you are that number. Huh? See, it makes all the difference, Mark. It really does. That being said, I did get one under my belt a week ago this past Friday, as I made my hour-and-a-half drive to photograph Colby Calais and Jason Mraz. You've given me two names that I know of course, but two names where whenever I meet them, I think, oh, how's this one pronounced? Is it Calais? Is it Calais? And Mraz, well, come on, M and an R together, that could be all sorts of things. Anyway, before I sound like my kids suggest I sound, you're too old, Dad, you don't know all the latest names, I'll move on. They were in concert and I was photographing them. As a side note, I got a couple of minutes to talk to Colby before she went on stage, and she was great to talk with, which is always good to hear. I love a story when, you meet somebody reasonably well known and they turn out, well, we had a story last week, they turn out to be really nice. But trust me, he says, when I say there have been others that weren't so nice, to the point where I consider pretending to be sick all of a sudden and not grace them with my photographic efforts. But I digress. Don't worry about that, Mark. But we do need names. I'd like some names, please. I shall be talking with their mums. I'm sorry, but I don't have the name to the episode, he says, I listened to, or the number, possibly it was Become One with Wonder, the title. But in that episode, you inquired if there was a word, a collective noun, I think was the word I used, a word for a group of photographers. I'm not sure why that stuck with me all these days since I listened, but it has nonetheless. It's an earworm. The word I came up with was a stop of photographers, and here's why. We use stop quite often in our line of work. We work in f-stops for the most part to make an image, and we stop time and cherish it for years to come. There's probably other ways we stop as photographers. Well, we stop along the path a lot, don't we? We stop sometimes when our partners are saying, please don't stop, carry on. You've got enough photographs for the day. So there are probably other ways we stop as photographers, but my brain is foggy as I was out late last night. Do you remember Richard Marx? Well, I got to photograph him, you see. I've quite a bit of editing to do, so I better get on with it as it goes. But I've sent a photo I made of Colby. I'm not allowed to send photos of Richard until I receive permission. Anyway, I hope you're well and you continue to love what you do as much as I do. Until our coffee, Mark Christensen. I'm waiting for that coffee, Mark. It's going to be the finest coffee in the world when we eventually get to share that together. It really will. So thank you for your letter. Don't let those pop stars give you any trouble. Remember, and it's worth marking their card with this. Actually, it's worth making. This could be a good T-shirt. Another T-shirt idea. We're only as famous as our next algorithm. That could be a T-shirt. Or actually, no. What about waiting for my algorithm to update? That's the one. Note to self. Print it when I get home.
There's something about the way that the sky turned red. You were turning off the lights on your sister's bed, wishing on the clouds on an evening stroll. There's something about a hurting that a heart can't hold. There's a small tattoo curling up your spine. Remember, body asked me when I called you mine. Put your head on my heart and heard a bluebird sing. Threw a coin in the river and we watched it sink. And my heart stopped. I'm only waiting for your teardrops. I'm only waiting for the truth. And I watch the signs on an empty street. Got too many friends that want something from me. I got a heart of gold and a head of lead. And there's something by the way that the silence fell. And my heart stopped. I'm only waiting for your teardrops. I'm only waiting for the truth. Do you think that could be you? Oh, lover of sweet nothing. Give me good, give me grace. Oh, lover of sweet nothing. I saw the truth written on your face. Put your head on my heart and heard a bluebird sing. We threw a coin in the river and we watched it sink.
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.